Which conspiracy theory do you believe is true? I'm tempted to believe the one about Michael Jordan's first retirement being a secret suspension for betting on games. If I was Michael Jordan, I would bet on my games too. I kinda think he was approached by organized crime and they attempted to extort him into losing games or maybe even the finals one year. The timing of his father's death is too creepy. I hear his pops was murdered because of Mike's gambling debts. That's the darker side of the conspiracy theory, but is part of it. Michael Jordan is a known competitive junkie and there are stories of him betting thousands of dollars on each hole if you golf with him. I wouldn't be surprised if he gambled on games and got caught. The NBA knew they'd be dumb to Pete Rose him, so he retires for a year, then comes back. But Michael Jordan's current net worth is $2.1 billion, so to put his gambling on golf in perspective, he could bet $10K on each hole, and that would be the equivalent of me betting a $1 a hole. Which would make it hard for me to believe his dad was killed over his gambling. If he lost, he could just pay the debt, right? Unless he was like, I bet you my dad's life that I'm gonna hit a hole in one right here. More like win the game, but don't blow the +9 spread or else, and Jordan balled out and won by 30. Considering it's Michael Jordan, you let the debt build up. Somewhere in the upper hundreds of thousands, you start to press him for the money. Michael Jordan probably gives some bullshit about getting that kind of cash is harder for him because it's all tied up in investments and whatnot. You still let him build more debt. Now it's over $1 million that he owes. You press him harder. Michael Jordan gives the same bullshit. Now it's in the "F you pay me" territory. Mike starts to avoid you thinking he's safe because he is who he is. You can't take him out because you'll never get yours that way. So you give him a very clear F warning and message. He wasn't that rich back then. Jordan is notoriously cheap and welches on even small debts like paying for dinner or his car payments. He's known to tell people that just doing business with him is publicity enough for payment. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he looked at a $100K debt the same way. I think you're onto it. The same stories I've heard about his golfing bets also included how he won't pay when he loses, but he'll get aggressive if he wins. That psychology doesn't go away simply because he can pay. Can someone explain why it's illegal to do that? Like if I was a footballer and I bet on myself to score a hat trick, that's what I should be trying to do every game anyway, so it doesn't affect my performance, but it's still against the rules, and I don't get why. I used to be confused by this, too. Then I thought about it, and the reason became obvious. It's because for certain critical players or managers, they're not suspected of betting on themselves or their teams to do well. They're suspected of betting on themselves to lose or take a dive. It's easier to affect an outcome where you lose than one where you win. Even if you're betting only for your team to win, it can be an issue. Pete Rose supposedly only bet on his teams to win when he was a manager. However, especially in baseball, you can hurt your team by doing your best to win one game. You can wear down all your best pitchers and then have nothing left for the next few games. Also, even if he never bet on his team losing, it doesn't mean he didn't lose on purpose. Imagine he owes a gambling debt and the guy says, hey, you want this debt to go away, just lose your next game, that way the person he owes money to can win that money back, and Rose could cover it up by claiming he was resting his better pitchers. Never looked at it this way. All good points. Not to mention that you'll get better odds if your team is perceived as an underdog, so you have an incentive to suck in any game you're not betting on. Yeah, great points. In general, if you allow outsiders secretive and potentially illicit to influence your sport's competitiveness, you are opening the door to widespread abuse. Governments spread wild and crazy conspiracy theories to discredit conspiracy theorists and make them look like lunatics. That way, when someone actually finds a real conspiracy, people will just go, oh, it's one of those crazy guys. Muddying the waters is an old political game and it's being played more actively today than ever before. Russia does this with Syria. They spread every conspiracy theory under the sun, labeling civilians terrorists, saying they gassed themselves, that victims of war crimes are paid actors or doctors or working for the CIA. The effect is to kill any sense of what is true, which helps their cause. The more confusion in Syria, the less attention to their horrific crimes. For example, Russia bombing 4 hospitals within 12 hours. But if you say the medical workers themselves are terrorists, well then anything goes. I think Futurama has an episode where something like this is mentioned. The US president says that the only people in the super secret meeting would be him, Pentagon generals, and a single nutcase conspiracy theorist to spread the news. Have no one believe him. There is a South Park episode where Stan and Kyle try to debunk the 9/11's conspiracy theories, but after digging they find out that the conspiracy theories are true, but then President Bush tells them that the conspiracy theory is the conspiracy. He basically says that if the public thinks the government is capable of something like that, it makes them seem a lot more powerful than they really are. Another example was the UFO stuff at Roswell. People believing in UFOs provides great cover for developing spy planes like the SR-71 and stealth aircraft without arousing suspicion. I used to work on the B-2 and can totally see how it looks like a UFO if you're looking straight on. There were a lot of people that reported flying triangles too. I think that's pretty cool though how secret it used to be. It's still secret now, but I feel like most pertinent info about it has already been leaked to governments, and most people would never guess what the actual secret aspects of the jet are. You can literally Google a cutaway view of its entire structure. To be fair, revealing its existence also has an effect. Your enemies may be scared that you have such a weapon. Or unnerved by the fact if something like the B-2 is openly being shown off, it's likely because it's either redundant or been replaced by something bigger and scarier you don't know about. Or at least that possibility can't be easily dismissed. But yeah, the B-2's flying wing design looks very alien and UFO-like, so makes you wonder if sightings off it colored the UFO aesthetic. Flying triangles could be the F-117 stealth fighter, maybe, as that was pyramid shaped like that. I agree. The government experimented with many shapes because the radar signature is part of the stealthiness, technically called low observable technology. There's a good chance people did actually see flying saucers alongside the F-117. That thing looks pretty weird too. Not only that, but they've actually done a pretty good job of changing the connotation given to the phrase conspiracy theory. If you look at the legal definition of the word conspiracy, it boils down to two or more people planning to commit a crime at some point in the future. It's a fairly normal word, used to describe criminal actions all of the time: conspiracy to defraud the government, conspiracy to distribute illicit drugs, conspiracies all around us. Now attach the word theory to it, and all of a sudden you're a nut job. Cultra was a conspiracy theory. You'd probably get thrown in the nut house in the 1950s for suggesting the government was essentially kidnapping people and testing crazy drugs on them. Conspiracy theories are all insane until they become actual conspiracies. The government did so much evil shit back then, it's pure insanity to believe any of it. Of course, those programs were uncovered and a large percentage of people still thinks it's fake, and of those that know it was all real, a large percentage believe all those programs stopped and the government couldn't possibly get away with things like that today. For instance, Operation Mockingbird consisted of intelligence agencies planting agents within the various media outlets and recruiting media members to control the flow of information and push government propaganda. This all happened in the 70s and 80s, and they got busted, program revealed, and they double pinky swear they would never do it again. Fast forward to today, and yeah, holy shit, Fox News is 100% state media, especially after running off all the journalists with integrity, like Shep Smith. Also, just something everyone should be aware of, the US government tested chemical and biological weapons on American population centers such as St. Louis and basically the entire state of West Virginia. They had an active chemical weapons testing program in the late 60s at the same time the Point Pleasant Bridge collapsed, killing a bunch of people, and there were mass sightings of an 8-foot-tall bat bear bird bug creature with glowing red eyes called the Mothman. That was on the border of West Virginia and Ohio, and they were probably spraying everyone with LSD and intentionally collapsed a bridge to see how the test population would respond for military purposes. Mine will likely get buried, but here it goes. I am a farmer, and prices for our commodities in the US have been depressed for half a decade now, with no end in sight. The USDA releases monthly reports on acres planted, projected yield, stocks of grains, etc. My theory is that the USDA makes these numbers up to manipulate the commodities markets to keep the prices at a level that encourages export. We had terrible yields and the lowest number of harvested acres in corn across the country last year of the last decade, yet the price you can sell it today is below 1980 price. Why? Exports have slowed, so need to knock the price back. Hope this makes sense. I will answer questions if you have some. Market manipulation by government-backed entities when it comes to agriculture is definitely a thing. I know it's not the same, but have you watched Super Size Me 2? Holy chicken. Spurlock decides he wants to open a chicken fast food restaurant, essentially just using it as an excuse to learn the ins and outs of the gross evils behind fast food. What he discovers, actually, is the insane and horrible way chicken farmers are treated in the US, and that Big Chicken, backed up by the US government, not only exists, but essentially has a monopoly on all chicken farming in the country. They will arbitrarily decide what each farmer's chickens are worth, meaning if you piss them off, they will just be like, okay, you only get paid this for your chicken now, because F you. Can confirm. Most chicken farmers around me are also forced to buy millions of dollars worth of updates every few years to keep up with meaningless industry standards. Practically all of them have given up chicken farming for row crops instead. Farmers are some of the most abused people in the country. This is also true in most farming. A documentary I watched went into detail about how because the seeds and genetically modified companies can copyright them and then sell them to farmers with a contract for X years. On the surface they seem beneficial. Farmers get the faster growing, more pest resistant, drought resistant, etc. for less than regular seeds and have a guaranteed buyer for all their produce, as the produce grown has to be sold back to the seed seller. Well, the catch is that you only ever going to be able to plant and sell that seed because the last year of your contract they're gonna alter the seed a little, so the seed you're contracted for isn't made anymore, or at least unavailable in your area. Too bad your contract says you have to use that seed or the contract is void, and you're on the hook for the full market price of the seeds you were using, rather than the discount, which is usually an extortionate sum that no farmer can afford. The only way out is to sign a new contract, and guess what happens when the contract is just about over? The only way to escape them is usually to just not plant for a whole year, something that would bankrupt just about any farmer. Oh, and as an extra FU, it's illegal to keep seeds or produce that isn't declared and given back to the company. Farmers can and do get sued if they forgot a bag of seed in their barn somewhere. That Beyonce is actually 10 plus years older than she says she is, and Solange isn't her sister, she's her daughter, and it was hidden to help Beyonce's career. Gabrielle Union has stated before she and Beyonce were friends and the same age. Gabrielle Union is 47. Beyonce is stated as being 38 currently. Edit. And that's what the Jay-Z and Solange elevator fight was about. Second edit. Also why the pregnancies were faked. Pregnancies are higher risk the older you get. Well, this has certainly sent me down a rabbit hole this morning. I'm going to have to make more coffee. She's literally been performing since she was 8 with Kelly Rowland in a girl group called Girls Tyme in 1990. There's videos online of them performing at local shows. They both look their age. Her dad took over management and created Destiny's Child in 1995. She was 14. All of the group members were around the same age and clearly look like teenagers. Michelle was 16, Kelly and Beyonce were 14, but they were marketed as a group of 16-year-olds. Beyonce is the product of stage parents and started her career at a young age. She was 16 when the group started becoming famous. She seems older because she's literally been a famous singer for 20 plus years. Government keep asking people on RS Reddit about the conspiracies they believe in so that they can do better job at hiding it. Wait a minute. FBI. B, you want to disappear. That there is a perfect person for everyone. Not really a conspiracy theory, but I have to believe in something, I guess. Wholesome conspiracy. Yeah, actually, why would all conspiracy theories have to be bad?